Welcome back to MMAOddsBreaker Fight Breakdown Show. I'm Trigg. That's Nick Kalikas. This week, UFC Fight Night 70, Machida versus Romero, Hollywood Park Casino in Hollywood, Florida. This one's going to be the main event. I'm having a hard time picking this one. It's really difficult. One guy sliding down, one guy coming up, one guy older, big muscular wrestler, but is it really going to come into effect come in the third round? Romero still have the same kind of shape. But, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's talk about the co-main event. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Lorenz Larkin. This one is a little bit easier for me to pick, but it's still going to be pretty close in the line, I think. Before we even get the line out there, I'm taking Larkin. Now, is he the favorite? And if so, by how much?
Yeah, he's around a 2-1 favorite, actually. Larkin is around 215-ish out there. So maybe some decent value on the other side in Ponzinibbio too, because both these guys are strikers, as you know. But I think it is a justifiable line for Larkin being a favorite. I mean, he's moving down to 170. This is his second fight. He looked phenomenal in his first fight. It was quick work, honestly, that he made of John Howard. So we really didn't get to see him an extensive amount of time. I would like to have seen him go 2-3 rounds to see, how his body really took to 170. But he did look phenomenal. So a striker versus striker type of matchup, it should be explosive for sure.
If this hits the ground, who do you think could win it if it's on the ground?
Well, I think Ponzinibbio actually has a slight edge on the ground. I think that he's got a little bit underrated wrestling. Both these guys got good takedown defense. They've been working on it because honestly, whoever they face, since they are strikers, I mean, the other opponent usually wants to take them to the floor and control them, wrestle them, try to beat them on the ground. So they've been both working extensively on their takedown defense and their wrestling. So honestly, in that part, it should be kind of neutralized out a little bit. But I do give the slight edge to Ponzinibbio, the dog here.
If Larkin is to win this fight, besides knocking him out, getting a clean knockout, how can Larkin win?
He could also win on the scorecards. I do think it'll be a little bit tougher because Ponzinibbio might shove him up against the cage a little bit and grind on him some that way. And I think Larkin's best shot is honestly probably by stoppage or just doing what he does best is move around, use that footwork of his. He's got a lot of speed. He can avoid a lot of the striking possibly from Ponzinibbio and maybe just outpoint him. So he could win on the cards, but I do think that he has a better shot, honestly, of winning inside because Ponzinibbio has been tagged throughout his career. He's been rocked. He's been knocked out before. So there is a way for Larkin to land that knockout punch and for this fight to be over. But let's not get too comfortable because we can say the same thing about Larkin. I mean, not too long ago, we see Philippou, was up a weight class, but Philippou knocked out Larkin as well. So both of these guys are really similar in a lot of ways. I just think that striker versus striker, you got to give the edge to Larkin. He is the better striker.
I agree. My pick is Larkin, but obviously if I'm laying money down at these odds, I'm going to lay it down at Ponzinibbio just because of the line right now. Is that something like a good bet?
Yeah, I hate to say it again, but it's probably true. It's another dog or pass situation because, I mean, it's a little bit too risky, I think, at this point to lay over 2-1 on Larkin, even though I do think he's going to win the fight, honestly. I mean, if you look at how they strike, how they go about striking, I think Larkin's just the better striker, period, like I said. So I think he could do a little bit more damage. He could be a little bit more active on the feet as well. Ponzinibbio, the most dangerous part, I think, about his striking game is when he initially lands that first solid blow, he ends up just basically flurrying on his opponent. And once he starts unloading, you're out of there. So I think Ponzinibbio, that's his best chance is maybe get him up against a cage and start unloading and possibly, make this a firefight. And if that's the case, Larkin could be in some trouble. But overall, I do agree it's kind of a dog or pass situation because both these guys are going to stand and bang, and both these guys have a little bit of suspect chin. So that being said, it's hard to lay that kind of juice on the favorite here, 2-1 or over. So that's why.
All right, moving on to the main event, Romero versus Machida. This one is, I'm having a really hard time with this one. Romero comes in with a 9-1 record, 8 wins by KO, but an amazing wrestler. Beats guys up. Obviously, the former world champ from Cuba just crushes guys when he wants to, but runs out of gas. Also has that stomach issue that every time he makes weight, he can't control his bowels in the middle of the fight. And then that also becomes an issue because now every referee is aware of it. So if it happens again, the fight could get stopped on a TKO because he can't control himself. So it's a situation where you kind of have these other things going on in the background, and then the other thing is Machida. You can't grab him. It's a big muscular guy chasing a guy around a smaller ring. This is the 25-foot cage. It's not the 30-foot cage, so it's smaller, which makes Romero's job a little bit easier, but still Machida, his backpedaling game, his whole running away game, is he going to catch him or not? Machida, of course, with a 22-6 record with 9 wins via KO, and is the former light heavyweight champion. So this one for me is really, really tough to pick. How hard was it to set the line on this one?
It's tough, really tough, because Machida, in my opinion, is one of the all-time greats in the UFC. I mean, what he's been able to accomplish throughout his career, the victories that he has on his resume, fantastic. So he is, I mean, just top-notch, well-respected, and deservingly so. I mean, he's the better fighter. Make no mistake here, in MMA, Machida is the better fighter. I mean, throughout his career, again, he's faced the better competition. He's accomplished better things. He's a better striker overall. His takedown defense is pretty good. I think Romero's probably going to struggle, even though he's got that Olympic judo, or I'm sorry, Olympic wrestling background from Cuba. He's a silver medalist there, so he definitely has a way to win this fight by using his wrestling. But it's going to be tough because Machida's not an easy guy to take down and control. But if he can do that, then obviously that is a path to victory for Romero. But I think more than anything else, Romero's best shot is honestly, again, maybe pinning Romero or Machida up against a cage and starting to unload some bombs there as well, because Romero has a lot of power. The guy's nasty on the feet, no doubt about that.
I don't even know how he makes weight, to be honest with you. And this is coming from a former wrestler that did nothing but make weight. I'm not sure how he's going to make weight and how he keeps making weight at this weight class. He's such a big guy at 185. He's such a large framed person to begin with, and then it's completely muscular. But it doesn't make a difference with a guy like Machida. He's used to dealing with guys that are bigger than him. He's used to dealing with guys that put a lot of weight on him. Has Machida lost a step? Is he getting slow enough now where a guy like Romero can catch him?
See, that's the thing here. I mean, I honestly think that he's taken this fight on a little bit of too soon. I mean, he just went out there a couple months ago and got dominated by Rockhold. Now, again, the domination was because the fight hit the floor, and that's honestly, well, Rockhold's such a well-rounded fighter in all aspects of the game, but that's definitely the advantage that Rockhold had over Machida was on the ground. And once the fight got to the ground, Rockhold destroyed Machida. I mean, he took a beating. He had to go to the hospital afterwards. So, I mean, that was only a couple months ago. That's why I think, in most cases, I would be all over Machida here because by far, I think he's the better fighter. I think it's going to basically Romero's going to have to get lucky and just kind of land that lucky punch. Not really that much luck, I guess, when it comes to Romero because he's got that kind of finishing power. But I think Machida can actually outlast him. He's got better cardio, as you mentioned. I mean, Machida's been in so many great fights. His stamina is good. He's just more of a solid fighter. You know what you're getting out of Machida, and you know that Machida can also do some damage. I mean, his angles that he uses, he's got knockout power to go along with it. Romero has been rocked, dropped. His chin is a little bit suspect as well. With the cardio, with him fading a little bit as a fight goes, you got to give the edge to Machida. But with all the circumstances coming into play here, with the short notice, by the way, Machida wanted this fight. He didn't exactly, I don't think he went out there and was looking for Romero, but he wanted to have a quick turnaround, which was surprising for me. Honestly, I figured he'd want to rest his body up a little bit, get mentally ready, mentally prepared. But for him, I guess the best way to do that was just get right back on the horse and get back in the cage and try to erase that recent loss to Rockhold. But I mean, look at the opponent they gave him to do that with. I mean, it's Romero, and Romero has been a beast. I mean, look what he did to Tim Kennedy. Nobody's ever abused Kennedy like that. I mean, there was a lot of controversy surrounding that fight, but make no mistake at all. I mean, Romero was doing some damage even before all the controversy started there against Kennedy. So Romero's a very tough out.
Yeah, this one is a tough one for me, and if my math is correct, it's 70 days in between fights. 70 days in between fights. That is old school style of guys that would fight every month. That's like a Jeremy Horn style of fighting, where you're just going to keep fighting every week, until you figure out what's wrong. I don't know if Machida, at his age, if that's very wise. Smaller cage, 25-foot cage, does make a huge difference versus the 30-foot cage. Gives a lot more space for Machida to run. This one is still so tough for me to fight, to pick. Normally, like I said, I agree with you, Machida all day long, but, there's so many other factors going on in this one. This, from a line standpoint, this is another dog or pass situation, correct?
It surely is, yeah. And again, in most circumstances, I would probably go the other way. But with everything that's going on here, and you know what, the small cage factor, a lot of people can say what they will about it, but I do think that does matter. I mean, you do see a higher finishing rate with a smaller cage in play. So, like you said, they don't have enough room, with the room, a little bit more luxury of just having a little bit more space to get out of there and use the cage a little bit more to his advantage. So, I mean, they're going to be in a more compact environment. They're going to have to slug it out a lot more. So this definitely is going to make things a lot more interesting as well. And with both guys having so much power, man, I honestly slightly lean towards Romero, even as a pick right now, because of all the circumstances. And I can't believe that, but like I said, because most of the time I back and support Machida because I do think he's one of the best out there, period. And I mean, you can look at light heavyweight, you can look at, of course, middleweight. Since he's moved down, he's looked phenomenal. But he does have his hands full here. And I think this is a spot where Romero can actually win this fight.
It's going to be interesting to see how this one pans out, man. This one I'm leaving alone altogether from a personal standpoint. It's because I can't make up my mind. I cannot make up my decision, here on a Friday and the fight's tomorrow. I just cannot, I can't pull it together. So, dog or pass in the co-main event for me, and then pass entirely on the main event because I'm just having a personal hard time trying to pick it. It was dog or pass for you on the co-main event, and what's your finalized pick from a betting standpoint for the main event?
Maybe throw a small flyer on Romero at the current price wouldn't be a bad thing either. So, yeah, I think it's both dog or pass situations, to be honest with you, in these ones here.
There you have it. It's another edition of the MMA Fight Breakdown Show. I'm Frank Trigg. That's Nick Kalikas. We'll see you next week.